You know what I thought would be really funny, though, really fast?
You're broadcasting now.
I know we're broadcasting. I'm just going to say that, but like I keep like popping on my glasses on and off, like every time it switches to you. And then like I have my glasses on. And then, anyways, welcome to Chat Communications Happenings and Trends. So today we are going to discuss kind of this broader issue on immigration and everything that's going on today. And then we're going to also talk about kind of Joe Manchin and maybe these supposed, liberal Democrats and where they're standing on this particular issue and so on and so forth. Now, we don't have the call-in feature ready today, so please continue to talk with us in our channel and we will do our best that we can to kind of read your comments and we'll go from there. I'm gonna switch over. Somehow, where did it go? Oh my goodness. I am having a bad day, Janet.
It's been a bad day all around. I've been having the craziest day. I don't know what the hell's going on.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. It's just been a weird day. I can't find it now. Okay. That being said, so the Trump administration basically has set up policy. Now, it's not by law. It's a written policy of the Trump administration now to basically separate families at the border. And I hope this is close enough. And if you recall that under Barack Obama's administration, they did start these childhood facilities or detainment facilities for children. And it was due to the fact that there was a large influx of unaccompanied minors crossing the border. And so they didn't know where to put them if they were to get caught. Now, the Trump administration has now decided that not only will they detain unaccompanied minors, but they would also detain accompanied minors. And these accompanied minors can range from, I guess, taught from infancy to teenage years. And there's been reports about a woman who is a mother and was breastfeeding her baby that got taken away from her at that time. And one thing that has been irritating me a lot about this discussion is the fact that no, this was not law. This was not law before, and it is not law now. And so I think that anything that is kind of a disgusting policy, which I do consider this particular policy pretty disgusting, because you have something like the Family Fucking Values Party saying, okay, we're going to strip your children away from you to teach you a fucking lesson and maybe deter other people in the future from coming into the United States as immigrants. Now, if you know that not all that this has happened to, the people that have had their babies taken away from them are illegal immigrants, if you can be illegal. Some do have documentation. They are seeking asylum, and there is a legal process for that. They show up at the border, declare that they're seeking asylum, and then that goes and gets into the courts, and the courts kind of hash their case out. Now, they are supposed to do that, but what they have been doing instead is taking the children away from these asylum seekers and then detaining these asylum seekers as well into adult facilities so that they can be redeported out of their country or their place of origin where they're trying to flee from. Now, this is against our fucking laws to do this. People do have a legal fucking right to seek asylum in the United States. That's how the law is currently, and that's how it was. It's never changed. It's not changed now. And so there's been a common mis kind of understanding of that people keep saying, well, they're illegal, they don't have documentation. No. They are here to be legal, to legalize themselves into our country because they are asylum seekers. That is a whole different process from, being in a country of origin and then doing the paperwork through your embassy there and so on and so forth. This is a different thing. And they went up to the border to seek asylum. It's not that complicated to understand this process. It's really not. And it is a completely legal way to gain entry into the United States. So there's been, I guess, a falsehood around that narrative by the Trump administration as well. and also a falsehood about who these children are. So part of it's like, well, we're taking the kids away because 100% of them are being trafficked. Okay, do you have proof of that? Do you where do you think these kids came from? Like, do you think like these people just grabbed children randomly, and like this woman that was breastfeeding her baby, she grabbed the kid randomly and happened to be able to produce breast milk for a pregnancy that actually wasn't hers? That's bullshit. That's not how that happens. These are probably, the majority of them are their children, or maybe they are an aunt and uncle. Okay, so they're not their like 100% like lineage, not their progeny in that fact, but they're the aunt and uncle taking care of the kid because their parents fucking died. And so they are their legal guardian at that point, and they are getting taken away. So there's no discrimination here between who's here to seek asylum, who's, was caught crossing the border or anything like that. And they're detaining everybody. And this is just wild to me. And I read something today about from an immigration attorney, and he had these childhood facilities were built and constructed under the Obama administration, and they are private, or I guess contracted under the Obama administration, because they're from private industry. And of course, we all know private industry has a profit motive, so of course they just love it. They love it. But this immigration attorney went up to Barack Obama and basically said, hey, can we get rid of these facilities? This is horrible. And Barack Obama essentially said something to the effect of, oh, okay, well, they're here. I mean, and then just walked away and like had absolutely no regard as to what they even symbolized. There's a historical precedent for this about taking children away or having children housed in facilities. There's great, and so to these people that are supporting this practice, you guys know absolutely fucking nothing about this issue. And an additional thing is that if you know anything about prison studies, you wouldn't realize that there is a huge problem in imprisoning children, even though they're technically not imprisoned, right? You do know that there's a thing about being detained. These Border Patrol officers and then the people within the facilities that are running these facilities are instructed to not care for these kids. They are instructed that if a kid is crying, you fucking leave them alone. And so they don't get any comfort. They are left to their own devices in a strange country that they don't know. And they are addressed as a number, not as their name. What does this sound like to you guys? I mean, am I going nutsoid here? Doesn't this sound barbaric? You start identifying people by their numbers, not their names, not who they are, don't comfort them, anything like that. And these are children. These are kids.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
It was that the sound clip that went around too of the officer like teasing them, like saying, you're crying or something like that, like just teasing them. It's like an orchestra. You need a conductor, and they're all crying. Yeah. Like leave them alone, but they don't mind teasing them. So.
I mean, but what does that sound like? I mean, you're dehumanizing somebody, right? If you have that amount of separation between, a crying child who is like weeping, that they have no fucking clue what's going on. They just know that their parent is getting ripped away from them. Their only security that they have in this country is gone. And then you have such a dehumanizing practice as address them by their numbers, do not comfort them, do not give them anything. But you know what? We're going to tease and taunt and make fun of them to further dehumanize this process. I mean, God, when all is said and done, I sincerely don't know what our excuse is going to be about this. Because to me, this is inexcusable. This is horrific. And to justify this based on child trafficking with no evidence, no support of that.
Can I ask a question? Like, who's talking about going after, like, okay, these kids are being trafficked to come up here, right? Who's talking about going after people that are accepting the kids up here? That I don't hear anybody talking about that. So if they're being trafficked, why are we not going after the people that are doing it here in the country?
Right. Because it's not about that. Because that would be a reasonable question to ask if that was a legitimate issue or a legitimate concern, or that would be something that should be legitimately addressed, right? If that was what it's about for this current administration, but that's not what this is about. Now there is, okay, so in my mind, you've got an agency like ICE ripping children away from their parents, dehumanizing these kids. I mean, I consider them to be a Gestapo equivalency or Gestapo equivalent here. And God, when all is said and done, I don't know what we're going to do. I really don't. And that's a great question, Janet. Why aren't we going after the people that are buying these children, right? Why aren't we going after that particular quote unquote industry, right? It's just a lot of head desk moments, to say the least. And to justify this practice and policy based on probably a very minor cases of something like that is just horrific to me. It's this, everybody's getting swept up into this this frenzy, right? Again, that same attorney I think this was in his thread, basically said as soon as because ICE wasn't always ICE, right? It was founded under the Bush administration in response to 9/11. And before then, immigration was handled as, I don't remember what the name of it was, but it was handled as a more civil issue. It was a more neighbor-based issue. It was more customs issue. And as soon as we put it under ICE or under Homeland Security, the issue of immigration, you criminalized it, right? You basically equated it to basic, I guess if it's under Homeland Security, right? Terrorism? So immigrants are now terrorists. That is the equivalent that it has been placed. And I thought the United States was a fucking nation of immigrants, right? That's what I've always heard. But now we've got a huge barrier to immigration, which I would argue has enriched this country, which had made it a great country to live, because you get so much different exposure to different people if you are willing to get out of your fucking bubble, right? You know, and we have some of the smartest and best people did, but it's a horrific policy. And the fact that, you know, it makes me mad because you've got a Republican Congress or Republican president. They control everything, all branches. They own like the majority of the states, right? And they could end this practice immediately if they wanted to. They could say, no, we're not doing this anymore. And they could do that. It would just take Paul Ryan and Turtleface. That's all it would take, right? They could say, this is barbaric and we do not support this. You know, we believe that in due process under our laws. If they are the law party, they are the family values party, they sure as fuck aren't showing that, right? And okay, so I'm confused. I'm so confused by the hatred that immigrants are facing right now. And it's not all immigrants, right? Let's just be real. It's the ones that are Black and brown. Mm-hmm. It's not white immigrants that people are particularly targeting. So you've got.
Do you want to like? So some of the numbers on, I'm kind of echoing through your thing, but some of the numbers are like so when they started ICE, it was 48 Republicans, 41 Dems, and 1 independent signed on to start ICE. And that came from INS and the custom investigators, the U.S. custom investigators became one department. And then it was moved under the Department of Homeland Security because, of course, after 9/11. So that's basically the numbers. So it was like we were talking about this before. It was a bipartisan bill, and as we all know, bipartisan bills are kind of crappy. So
thanks for mentioning that, because I had forgotten to mention that. Yes, it was a very bipartisan based effort. I think they, again, 9/11 rocked our country. It was an alarming experience, and it blindsided a lot of people. And so people got caught up in that. That's why you have more of a surveillance state now, where an unchecked surveillance state, by the way. And immigration got caught up in this as well. And all of this, it's exhausting, Janet. It's so exhausting. This is bad.
A little bit. So someone was saying that I need to go closer to the mic. So I'm going to turn up my mic just a tiny bit. All right, go ahead, Amanda. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I lost my train of thought. This is really bad. And this should be like huge warning signs. Not to mention that in 2015, a mass grave of immigrants was found near a checkpoint in Texas. Then Texas authorities refused to investigate it because basically their justification was, well, no laws were broken. Wait, that's a fucking mass grave of people. I thought it was illegal to murder people in the United States. I thought that was a law broken. Texas authorities, fucking officials. That's a law that's been broken. And then you have who's going to get caught up next, right? So somebody like me, I'm a pretty ambiguous looking person. I'm a citizen here, but a lot of people that are ignorant don't know what race I am, and so who's to prevent somebody from detaining me? No, nobody's going to prevent that. Nobody. Or detaining someone else like me, or detaining somebody that is speaking out against this. Because I know from reporting that the ICE director has targeted people and reporters. It's not widely reported, but it has been reported. And so, and is that getting checked? No. Nobody's, guys, this is really bad. If you guys don't understand how bad this is, then you need to go back to school. I don't know what to tell you. This is America, of course. We're founded on racism and racial ideology. And the one little thing that the United States had was this kind of general like idea, or at least the idea of the acceptance of immigrants, right? Because they do enrich our lives if you just get out of your fucking bubble. And I also read an interesting tweet that basically it was going up against the system, right? If you're angry that your jobs are gone, if you're angry that that now you make less money, you're justifiably angry. I understand that. But you have to understand that immigrants that come into this country have nothing. They're if we want to do a hierarchy, right, of people, they're at the lowest of the low, right? As far as influence in politics are concerned, as far as any influence is concerned. Because, they're not even citizens, right? So sometimes they don't even have the same rights that you and I have if you're a citizen. And so they are the lowest people, and you're scapegoating them. you're pointing your finger in the wrong fucking direction. This is what you're feeling. That hostility needs to be aimed at the system. And the reason that you are pointing your finger in the wrong direction is because you've been told by the people that want to maintain that system, because you're rich off of it, right?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I have a story I want to relate to you guys. Right in 2015, when I became a Bernie supporter, a woman I worked with that I was really actually pretty close with, she decided she liked Trump. Whatever. She's from Massachusetts. I thought that was weird. Whatever. She liked Trump. She'd get mad at me if I'd say something against Trump, but I'm like, whatever. So one day we got into it, and this is when our friendship ended. She tells me that about the immigration stuff. Oh, well, I have a friend in Texas who lives near the border, and they get up and these immigrants poop in their pool. I'm like, no, because I've heard the story from other people. Like, you can't use these. You can't say this. Like, it's not happening. Like, who would purposely go to a pool and poop in it? Like, go in the woods. Like any normal other person would if you had no facility. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And it's all these lies are built up over time, and people believe them, and that's what the government wants us to do. They want us to believe, they want us to have a scapegoat because they don't want us to pay attention to what they're doing. They want us to be like, oh, well, you know, all my issues are because of these people coming into the country. And, you know, it's just ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. I don't know.
Absolutely. It's kind of weird that this person would go, well, the immigrants are pooping in the pool. Well, as opposed to like a neighbor or that's like angry at them or like
an animal.
Right. That's so weird. That's so weird. Yeah, my first thought was like, oh, that's obviously a pissed off neighbor for some reason that's just throwing their shit in your pool because people are crazy. But I mean, yeah, immigrants aren't going to go poop in people's pools. That's like crazy sauce, you know? Like the fact that somebody can even conceive of that as being remotely believable. Okay, well, unless they come out to a pool full of shit, you know, like there's no more fucking water left, right? Then stop your bitching. Yeah, it's annoying, but don't just say like it's somebody that you don't know who it is. And how likely is this report anyways, right? I mean, what's the veracity of that?
Oh, it's totally bullshit. I know it was bullshit. And like every other thing that she was throwing at me were all those little, you know, everything that a Republican says. And or now even some of the Democrats say, which is friggin' ridiculous, but it's just ridiculous. Oh, another thing we wanted to bring up is how Laura Bush writes this thing against Trump in ICE and what they're doing at the border, and how crazy that is because it was her husband that started it. And then Michelle Obama's coming praising Laura Bush for doing this. And it was your husband that continued it and grew it. Like, it doesn't, like, it's such bullshit what these people do. It's
hard. It's very hard because you are like, okay, let's step back and kind of like think a little bit logically about this. Like, yeah, ICE was started under the Bush administration. You're the one that gave them basically unbridled power to basically become a law enforcement agency. And we know how well that works in the United States. So you gave them this power to treat immigrants as criminals. That's what you did, Bush. That's what your husband did, Laura. And oh my God, like, I'm sorry that no, I'm not sorry. I'm not going to fucking apologize for this. But if you are a part of the GOP and you think that this is a fine practice, then why is it that the Trump administration is blaming the Democrats? Well, it was their policy. Okay, Trump. So you're basically saying that you approve of the Democratic policy to detain children, to strip them away from their parents. And now the GOP, you guys, that hate Barack Obama, this was Barack Obama's policy you're claiming, shouldn't you thereby hate that policy? Or is it maybe not about Barack Obama? Maybe it's not about the Democrats. Maybe you love it, right? You love it because what is it doing? It's targeting people that you don't like. You don't like all those brown people. You think America should be fucking white, right? Even though, like, the majority of the South in a lot of places were black. Surprise, right? Or Native American. One of the first fucking settler group here was a mixed race of people. And they weren't enslaved race either. It was a French settlement in the United States, one of the first ones. And I mean, it's just wild to me that you think that America was white and always has been and always will be. Fuck that. No, it wasn't. Who was here first? Native Americans, guys. And last time I checked, you guys didn't consider them white, right? Or are Native Americans now white? And so now you're going to treat them with the utmost respect, of course. Or maybe it's not about that, who was here first either. So what is your fucking argument? You have nothing to stand on here. You just don't. You just come out and say you're a racist piece of shit. And you know what? I can move on with my life. Instead of having to argue with you that is a racist statement or that is a racist ideology that you hold. You are fucking a racist piece of shit. Okay? Own that. Own it.
And there's a lot more. There's a lot more Central and Southern Americans that actually have some of the first people's blood in them. So they actually pretty much, should be here, and maybe we shouldn't. I don't know, or me, I should say.
They have more of a claim, right? If you want to do it by like country of origin.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so you were born in the United States. Okay, great. Your country of origin is in the United States, but you're trying to use history to justify you being the primary person here when you weren't originally the primary person here, or your race, if you will. And race isn't even a fucking biological concept anyways. It is a genetic mutation, right? It's a genetic mutation. That's all it is. And it allowed people to get more vitamin D. That's all. That's all it does. That's all your melatonin does. That's all. That's it. And to assume that it's a biological feature, because if you look at like biology, there is no such thing as race in biology. It's just a fact. These are facts. And so that just makes, again, you look even further stupid, racist people that aren't racist. How can you claim to be a good person? I'm sorry. I've been very upset by this lately because and then fucking Jeff Sessions, right, goes and says, well, we got to do this because, well, these are our laws. And the Lord God said that we need to obey all laws of the kingdom because Jesus and God has ordained that kingdom to be a mimicry of his on earth. And it's like, okay, you know what? That Bible passage that you're quoting, Jeff Sessions, was used to justify slavery. So why does it always go back to some fucking racist shit with them? Okay? Learned recently that, you know where the fucking term snowflake came from?
No. Well,
it was a term targeted and used to demean abolitionists. Okay, why fucking right, people? Why do you always, if you don't want to do fucking identity politics, maybe you should stop using identity politics. Maybe you should stop being such a racist asshole. Maybe you should stop using terminology that was used to basically, be derogatory towards people that thought black and brown people should have the same fucking rights as you. If it's not about race. If you're a goddamn good person, Because I know that at the end of the day, I'm a good Christian person. And that's how you go to sleep at night. How? Because you're not. You're not a good person. You're a piece of shit. Not you guys, audience. You guys are great. You guys are great, audience, by the way.
So the other thing we wanted to bring into this is first of all how Kamala Harris kind of supported ICE, and now is very much so supported ICE, and then the Joe Manchin thing, like him signing on last, and
okay, so I say her name wrong too. Kamala Harris or Kamala?
You say like Kamala, I guess. Kamala.
Like Kamala? Okay. Like Kamala. So Kamala Harris was a huge proponent of ICE. I think she did an interview where somebody asked, you know, do you support ICE? And her response was like, of course I do. We need to have ICE to be able to go after criminals. Again, equating immigration with criminalization, right? And it's just, these are the people that are in charge, right? And I know that Kamala Harris is a Californian senator. Now, California is supposedly the most progressive state in the nation. So I can't imagine that a lot of people would support her statements on that. I, being a progressive in the fucking South, think we need to abolish ICE. Now, I would imagine that one of the more progressive states in the union would be like, yeah, let's get rid of ICE. So why is she in office? But she was very punitive in nature, because wasn't she some sort of district attorney?
She was the attorney general.
Okay, she was the attorney general. And I had read that her like policies and things like had imprisoned more people, like so many people, that 3 times judges had to basically say you have to release prisoners because our system is way too crowded. And 3 times they had to give her basically a I don't know what it's called, but basically tell her to release prisoners because they were prosecuting and imprisoning too many people. Now this is no, again, we're number 1 here is the imprisonment of our own citizens and also non-citizens now. Yay, we're doing such a good job. I mean, how do you not look at this stuff and say like, no, these are internment fucking camps. These are concentration camps. You know that slavery is legal in prisons, right? So, like in California with Kamala Harris, I think one of her justifications was for not releasing these prisoners was something like, well, who's going to work for free? What?
I hate this country.
What? Thank you. Oh my God. So I think, when was this reported that prisoners were battling the wildfires in California? When was that? Do you know?
Oh, that was just, man, that was only, was it last year or the year before? It was 2016 when the bad fires, right? Through the summer.
Yeah. So
prisoners, yeah.
So you have prisoners fighting wildfires, right? Because who else can work for basically nothing? Now, if they had lost their life or limb or sustained any serious injuries, their families, there would be no compensation to them because they're prisoners and it's slave labor. Nothing. This is wrong. Okay, so my point of bringing that up is that slavery is slavery is legal under the Constitution for imprisoned people. What do you think those immigrants are going to be doing? Do you think that they're just going to be like sitting around not doing anything, or are they probably going to be put to work to do something? Where do you think those mass graves came from? How does this not like mimic something from like, I don't know, the 1930s? I'm just gonna throw it out there. How does this not mimic that? Are we still on? Because Janet, you look frozen to me.
It's me. I'm freezing up, so it's going to the Abby for the every time I talk.
So Casey Boucher makes a point that they've, I guess, these prisoners, they've been fighting fires for more than 20 years. I didn't know that. I mean, Kamala Harris, maybe we should get rid of fucking slavery for real. Maybe we should, I don't know, not have these childhood detention centers, right? And treat them like prisoners. There is, I used to do, my graduate work is in neuroscience, behavioral neuroscience. So I know a lot about psychology and brain, blah, blah, blah. And there's a great study, I'm sure a lot of people are aware of this, the like Milgram prison experiment, where he was very interested in understanding kind of this relationship between like inmate and those in charge. It was kind of like, at what point do you take your own agency and say something is wrong or anything like that? Anyways, it had to be stopped after 5 days, because what was happening is that these volunteers, they were college students, right, started internalizing their roles so well that it started to breach. It was very unethical in the direction that it took, because there was starting to be more of these kind of like signs of like general like abuses towards prisoners. They weren't really prisoners, right? They were volunteers to be in a psychological experiment. And then these people that went through this study that were prisoners, they weren't, and the psychologist said, you know, only refer to these prisoners by their name, by their number, not their name. It was kind of like trying to understand what happened during the Holocaust, basically. Like, why did people take orders? Why did this happen? Anyways, and it had to be terminated very prematurely. And these kids that, I call them kids, but these college students that went through this, to this day, still remember the number that they were assigned, and that they were only addressed by this entire time, because they were basically dehumanized during this experiment. And so you've got young children in these detention centers that are only going to be addressed by their numbers. It's ripe for abuse. It's, y'all, this is bad. I don't even know how to say that this is bad more than I can. I feel so powerless too. I kid you not. I feel so helpless, and it's been really, really bothering me. And then I have to go, like, who are these people that are doing this? Like, why do you work for ICE? What is it about you? What is the characteristics? Because again, this is the American Gestapo. Why do you work for an agency that tears children apart from their families? And then it reminded me of another study from, I think it was ran out of Stanford. Basically, it was about giving orders. And like, if you look official enough, it was, by the way, this study also is considered unethical, and so people can't do it anymore. But anyways, so what the study did was determine, like, do people follow instructions to a T, and at what point do they stop following instruction and saying again that something breaches their, that is not ethical, basically, for them to do. And so the setup of the study was somebody would come in, like me, to participate in the study, and they would have a Confederate or an actor, and the actor was behind a partition, like in another room. And me, I would give this person that I didn't know was an actor a series of questions, and every time that they got it wrong, I would have to administer a shock, and this shock would increase over time. So with every incorrect answer, I would increase the voltage of the shock. And basically, this is really bad about human behavior because they found that as long as the person like me that was gone there to administer the shock was told to do it, they continued to do it regardless of voltage level. And they also included that actor like screaming out in pain and telling the person to stop and telling them that like, oh, my heart is like, I don't feel well, I can't breathe. And they didn't stop. Right. And they weren't really administering shocks. Let's just get that out there. They weren't really doing that, but they thought they were doing that, which is the important part. And they didn't stop because the person that was like all official, you know, in a lab coat, you know, kind of some sort of authority figure, kept telling them, no, keep going.
Yeah.
And they kept going.
Yeah.
So this is really bad because again, it kind of like tells you, as long as the authority figure, in a lot of cases, people don't stop. You know, they'll continue this behavior. So even the Trump supporters, right? They need a strong man. The strong man says, don't stop. They won't stop. So this does not have, I don't have a lot of hope right now, y'all.
I want to share a story. And this is not immigration, but it's about being taken from your parents. My husband was the youngest of 7. His mother was sick. His father left. She probably got sicker every pregnancy. But this is the late 60s, so they didn't really know about postpartum and stuff like that. So the father left before she had Phil, and then he was taken at 2 weeks old from his mother. And all the kids were, except for the oldest, who was 15 at the time. And he has PTSD from it. He suffers a lot of damage now because of what they did. Like they didn't try to work with the mother and try to keep the kids with them. The whole family is just messed up from this whole thing. And so can you imagine all these kids? I mean, you know, some of them are even older and realize what's going on. Like how much trauma is going on with these kids too. And that's just horrible for us to do. You don't take kids from who they know or, you know, who they trust. You don't do that.
Yeah, it's damaging. For developing children, this is how they learn social interaction. This is how they know who's, you know, to recognize human threats, basically. So, you know, you get it in your case, Janet, you know, that's how you learn to know, like, how, if you are in trouble, who to rely on, if you're going to get that comfort that you need, or if, you know, it fucks you up. I can tell you that it fucks you up. So Aaron, it was Zimbardo, but then you later corrected me about the prison study. That was Zimbardo, and Milgram was the shock study. So thank you for the correction. Okay, so you know, it's very troubling. Yeah, children need their parents. They do, or their guardian, and to be healthy, well-adjusted adults. They do, and this is dangerous. This is so bad.
You can't take the kids and put them in a situation where, I mean, that's basically what happened to Phil. He was put in a crib and just left there. He wasn't nurtured. He was in this place in Massachusetts that was just a huge orphanage, you know, in the late 60s, early 70s. And they had way too many kids. They didn't have enough caregivers to give enough attention to these kids. And this is happening like 500 times worse at these detention centers. You know, these kids are being mocked now, or these kids are being, you know, and I mean, not that, you know, a lot of orphanages, there was a lot of issues too going on with kids being hurt and stuff like that. But I mean, this is even worse. I mean, this is so much worse what they're doing.
Absolutely. And some of these kids don't even speak English or anything like that. So
And I think they're only allowed to get like 2 hours of daylight a day, like to go outside and run around for just 2 hours. And that, you know, now we're having such a huge imprisonment problem of these children, they're going to start building tent cities. Holy shit. Okay. I don't really have a solution. I wish that, you know, we just as a community of people would just fucking go to these ICE detention centers and tear them the fuck down. Like, that's the only way out that I see for this. Like, we gotta like really get aggressive with this. I just don't know, because this isn't going to change with Congress. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to move on to Joe Manchin.
Right, I just want to mention, well, at least my governor, he is a GOP, but it's Massachusetts, so he's like a Mitt Romney type of GOP, whatever that is. But he's refusing to put the National Guard down there. Like, he's refusing to call up the Massachusetts National Guard to put them down there. So, I mean, it's going to have to be on the states. It's really going to be on the states that we have to do it. And
there's enough states that don't care. I know that in my state, the legislature here basically said that because my city tried to okay, so I'm gonna back up and tell a story. We have a large Kurdish population here where we live and where I live, and ICE came in and raided that population. But where my city and the city council refused to assist ICE in this raid, and as well as the police in the city, because they said, you know, we need these communities whole, because then they'll stop relying on us for assistance if they need any, or for, you know, any type of crime deterrence. Maybe they know something. But now they're not going to reach out to the proper authorities to basically stop crime. And so they basically refused to comply. Well, the state legislature here basically said that if you don't comply, we're going to strip your funding away from you. So I'm glad that there are a few states that it sounds like as a whole that don't want to comply with this type of policies that are popping up, but it's just not enough. And I'm really worried because I feel like, and maybe this is just where I live, a product of where I live, I just don't think there's enough people that care enough. And I know that I think I saw a poll that the majority of the country despises these children, this policy, right? But what are you going to do about it, right? I mean, that's where we're at.
All right, Joe Manchin.
Okay, so the reason why I don't have any faith in our congressional leaders is because of people like Joe Manchin. That basically, I think, Lauren, you sent out a tweet earlier to me today. Thanks for that. But basically, where he's wholeheartedly kind of supporting ICE and all their efforts that they do, and how they need to increase funding, right? But anyways, he finally signed on last night to the to co-sponsor the Families Together Act. And he set out a tweet basically, and this is his statement: I'm wholeheartedly opposed to any policy that allows innocent children to be separated from their parents. I'm signing on to the Keep Families Together Act, but I'm actively working with my Republican colleagues to find solutions to the issues that aren't addressed in the bill. And I don't know what issues he's talking about, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, that was his thing. But Republican, okay, so this is just pretending, right? We're going to pretend that Joe Manchin is a Democrat. Republicans aren't interested in working with you. They love this. They love it. They love this. So they don't care. They're not going to work with you, Joe Manchin. In fact, I think Donald Trump fucking laughed at you, right?
when you basically when it was you and then everybody else were Republicans. I don't know what they were discussing, but at some point Joe Manchin left, and then Donald Trump was like, "That stupid Democrat." He, you know, but that's pretending that Joe Manchin is a Democrat. But let's be real, he ain't no Democrat. He's a Republican. True and true. He's a Republican. There's no way he's not. All the policies he supports, the fact that he, the majority of people are Republicans. Let's just be real. I can't think of somebody that's not, other than maybe Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, there's a few that are a little more
in the Senate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the Senate,
Mm-hmm.
There's not many. There isn't many. I mean, Gillibrand votes the least with the Republicans, with the least with Trump. But we also know that she's highly, into the neo-lib and centrism and stuff like that. So, that's, I don't know. I think she's just trying to make a point because I think she's trying to run for 2020, to be honest. So.
Yeah, and so she can see that her area is kind of more progressive than she is, and she doesn't want. It's all about retaining power. God. They just don't want to lose it. That's why we still are stuck in this archaic two-party system that's so draconian that has de-incentivized people to vote, because if you don't vote, they win. I mean, this is the system that they love. This system, they want to retain power. That's why people like me can't break through, right? People like Paula Jean Swearengin, very progressive in West Virginia, tried to run up against Joe Manchin. Media never covered her, and she just couldn't get a breakthrough. But she actually lives in West Virginia. She came from like a whole coal mining family. I mean, she understands what West Virginians are going through way more than Joe Manchin does. Way more. I mean, and Joe Manchin, by the way, protected that industry when they did deregulation that caused people's lives in the mines. But there's no accountability for people like Joe Manchin because he is in a powerful position. So he gets to de facto murder people, right? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe, you know what? Everybody knows a murderer. I'm just going to throw it out there. There is somebody that that has murdered someone. Statistically. I'm just going off of pure statistics that is a possibility. And a big thing about murdering, especially if it's hidden and it's premeditated in nature, there's a certain level of dehumanization that people have to go through to be able to do that, especially if it's not a crime of passion where it's just like immediate. So somebody that's murdered somebody, and you probably know somebody that has done it with intent. And so that's a sign of psychopathy. And psychopaths, people that game the system, that act nice to your face, but have absolutely no empathy, where are they? Well, they're more likely to be CEOs, and they're more likely to be politicians. This is just, there's a lot of studies on it. If you don't take my word for it on it, I implore you to actually look up this yourself. Very interesting, by the way, psychopathy. But okay, so they're more likely to be politicians. So do they care about any of the issues that you care about? Fuck no. They're there because it's a powerful position to them. They have probably maybe directly murdered somebody, and we know they have definitely indirectly murdered people just based off of the policies alone. So these are people with absolutely no compassion for their fellow human being. None. And then the only reason that somebody like Joe Manchin is doing this Keep Families Together Act is because, okay, he wins in both cases, right? So if he's going to run, and Janet, I think you're expecting him to split parties. Or Lauren, was that you that said that?
I think both of us.
Both of y'all.
Yeah.
So I guess the expectation is maybe he's going to, flip and declare himself a Republican. which wouldn't be surprising. Nothing would be surprising about that. Okay, so where was I going with this about the psychopath stuff? Anyways, they have indirectly murdered people, if not directly. So you've got people that have that lack empathy in office because it's rewarded in our system. We reward people that are able to basically hurt other human beings to get on top. And we need to reevaluate that system, right? I just think that we are in a trap right now. And some of us are just kind of like, hey, maybe we should blame the system and not the little guys on the bottom. Maybe we shouldn't reward people that lack empathy. But there's so many people that have been so brainwashed to not focus on the overarching structure of that created the problem, the overall structure that has encouraged the problem, the overall reason as to why, you know, we're told to target somebody when it's people like the GOP right now that are all in power. They're the ones that control everything. They're the ones that could tonight in 5 minutes say, we're done with this. We're not going to do this anymore with the immigration. They could be the ones to say, today, we're going to end ICE. So Joe Manchin is smart in this regard. So if he runs as a Democrat in a few months, he can say, well, I co-sponsored this bill, right, about keeping families together. If he runs as a Republican, he is smart because he can say, I co-sponsored this bill because I'm a Christian and I am a family values man. And I really believe that as a Christian and family values, that family should stay together. So there's a win-win here for Joe Manchin. And so but don't be fooled by this. He is not co-sponsoring this bill because he actually cares about the problem and cares to address it. No, he's doing this only for politics, for the political, like, can we just stop the whole using human beings and their lives and their livelihoods as a political toy? I mean, but that's the psychopathy that we continue to reward in the system that we're in. I understand. Okay, so let me just be full disclosure. I understand why people would support anarcho-socialism, anarchism. I get that. And I think I'm to the point where I'm like, and Janet, I need your help because you have seen some positive things that have happened that the government can do and has maybe done. And I'm just like, I don't see it anymore. I'm like, can we just tear down the entire system? And so maybe you can walk me back on this.
I don't know if I can. I really don't. I'm like, the more and more I'm looking into all this stuff and seeing it daily, and just I don't know. I'm seeing it more in the eyes of, yeah. I mean, our whole system is just, it's got to go. The whole system is just wrong. It's not. It was meant to progress over time. They didn't expect it to stay the same. And we're stuck in this duopoly we were talking about the oligarchy because, talking about Obama and stuff like that, like he's part of that. Like they're all part of this. And until we break free from some of that, and I mean, we're pushing progressives, but we can't trust the elections. We can't. We're still using machines that can be hacked. We're totally, disenfranchising people or knocking them off of voter rolls and all this stuff. And they people are just like, they're sick of it. And they're just trying to get along at this point. And I can't ever, like, it drives me crazy when people blame the voters. It drives me nuts. And you just can't. It's who we have in the government. And until we all figure this out and go after the correct thing, like non-immigrant. If we can't go after the immigrants, we shouldn't be going after them. We shouldn't even go after, like, you know, anyone doing wrongdoing just on a personal level in prison. We can't, you know, blame them on things. We need to blame the government. It's the government is what brought us here. I mean, this is where we're at.
Yeah, we have a government that supports oppression. That's what it is. And I'm sure that there are some, okay, so one thing the government could do that would be great is offer healthcare for everybody. That would be a positive. We don't do that. Another good thing that the government can do is improve upon the Social Security, so that people don't have to live near poverty when they are of retirement age. We don't do that. So what's the fucking point? I mean, okay, so people will say, well, we need a military. No, we don't. What good has the fucking military done other than support capitalist ventures and support the oil industry and the petrodollar? What has the fucking government, what has the military done? Okay, so maybe we need government because we need police. No, we don't. Because, again, people are targeted more on race, right, by police. So you know, guys in the chat, maybe you guys have a thing of like, well, we need government for this.
Lauren, did you know?
Like, I agree that this system should be burned down. You know.
Yep.
There's no reforming it.
No, we're too far into it. There's like, we've gone too far. We've gone over the line. It's there's like no fixing it as it stands at this point. I don't believe it, and I honestly, I mean, I don't put down people that think that the Democratic Party can reform, but I don't believe that. I honestly don't believe it, and you know. I don't know. We got to do something. We got to do something, though. I mean, we're pulling out of the UN. We're pulling out of the UN human rights, which we'll be talking about on Thursday. So,
okay. I mean, so, am I muted?
No, you're there.
All right. So, two things. I'm gonna read two comments. So one is by Jake Smith. He says, "Vote green." All right, Jake. Here's the thing. I just got done saying this about the type of system that we have. Yeah, voting green is not going to fix the problem because who's floating at the top to be in the positions of power in the first place? Who are those politicians? What is the system that we are currently in? I just said that this system rewards psychopathy. And as long as that we continue to maintain that type of reward system, we will get the same politicians. No matter what party affiliation. Generally speaking, there might be like a rare instance of like somebody that actually does want to work for the people, right? So you've got these people that are floating to this top because they've had to crush other people to get there because they lack empathy, and we reward that. So even voting green, I suspect would not solve the issue. Now they might have other things that they could solve, if, like say the country woke up and everybody voted green, and but we still live in a system where psychopathy is rewarded. And again, it's not going to change much. It's not going to change anything on the human rights issue. It may, you know, do some more things about global warming. Maybe they're more a little bit forward thinking as far as like, yeah, maybe we should leave a planet that's actually habitable for our future selves or progeny or whatever you want to call children. But again, we really need to address the system, I would argue. Another comment that I want to read is Celeste Holmes says, "Hell, we don't even tax economic parasites anymore." And I just said this today on Twitter. I said, also, I had been thinking this. Anyways, but somebody said it for me, and I just agreed. So I didn't say this, but They're like, how come, you know, we have this thing about, you know, no taxation without representation. Well, if people aren't being represented, why the fuck are we paying our taxes? I mean, I'm not advocating for you not to pay your taxes, but I'm just saying, like, you aren't being represented, so you're not obligated to pay your taxes, right?
I'm sorry.
Is that kind of a thing? Is that, like, does anybody know about that? Like, if you're not represented, why are we paying anything into that?
I mean, I agree. Like, if we're paying taxes and it's not coming back to do right by the people, and most of it's going to the military so that people can make money off it, then, you know, it's just all it is they're taxing us so that the rich can get richer, and that's exactly what's happening. But I was reading Kim Dorsey's on, you know, she was saying that she has the military kid that calls her mom, saying, why are you railing against the status quo? You know, just don't waste your energy, because, you know, basically he's thinking there's gonna be a collapse, which I mean,
I think I brought this. Yeah. Let's see. It says a military kid who calls me mom and he's my son texted me one time.
Yeah.
Okay. Railing against the set. He said, me one time, what are you doing, mom? Railing against the status quo? Don't waste your energy. Wait for the collapse.
Yeah, that's what
is that. Okay. So, but people have to do that, right? So railing against the system is part of that. Yeah, there's going to be a collapse. There's no doubt in my mind. If you look at just history, right? About every 70 years, there's a kind of what people consider a refresh. And I think I mentioned this on the program before about like the generations and what, you know, people have said about them, and kind of like the cyclical nature that generations go through. And right now we're kind of at that precipice where basically millennials will be they're considered like the rebuilders after the collapse. So they will be responsible for rebuilding if we survive said collapse, right? I really don't want to go through this. I really don't. I don't think I'm strong enough. I mean, I'm sitting here bawling my eyes out about this immigration. And then, you know, having a whole society collapse and more people die, and because more people will die. God, I don't think I'm not ready. But
it's tough. I mean, as a fellow, you know, person that has empathy, it's really tough. But I mean, you have to learn. I had to learn. I mean, my husband is bipolar, so I had to learn, you know, to shut down some of that stuff, you know, personally, just to, you know, help him get through other things. I can't be emotional when he's needing help. So it's something it's really hard to learn to do. And it's hard to have empathy in the world we're living in right now. It really is. Amanda. She's fixing her mic, so I guess I get to keep talking. So I have nothing more to say. No.
Sorry about that. I play with this microphone so much it finally fell on me. So I'm sure everybody saw that. My bad. But yes, it's hard to be an empathetic person and live in the current world that we live in. Excuse me, because not only is it not really rewarded, but God, what somebody said on Twitter yesterday, something about empathy not being rewarded because it's there's no gain in it, because I believe that capitalism has kind of brought out the worst in our human selves and human behavior, because what's rewarded? Lack of empathy. What's rewarded? Selfishness. So, and also we have the narrative that if somebody else has something, right, somebody else gains at a loss to you. That's kind of the idea that we have ingrained into our heads. And so we're always, it's this competitive lack of empathy, no need for society. It's so bad. And no wonder there's mental health issues. No wonder there's health issues, because we live in a society in which things that are the worst about human nature, again, are rewarded, and that can tear down people that have these natural tendencies to be empathetic towards others, that believe that we need society because, I don't know, that's how we used to survive in our evolutionary history. So it makes sense that we would have these empathetic nature. We were built to do this. We're social animals, so we were built with empathy, except for about 5% of the population who are the psychopaths. So, I mean, yes, this is hard, and I don't have a solution, and I wish I did, because I'm always wanting to have a solution. I want to have a solution. I don't want to say, I don't want to take the thing about like, well, stop railing against the system solution and just wait for these things to happen.
Personally, I think we need to rail more. I think that's what's going to bring the change. I think, like the one thing we saw, like just stupid on Twitter, like, yeah, like we talked about last week with Kahana, actually endorsing Ocasio. I mean, just these little tiny things. At some point, they're going to add up. We're gonna get more wins, and more people are going to see and be against what's happening, because more people are getting sicker by the day, and they're going to need the help. They're going to need the health care. It's not there for them. They're going to see, and they're going to finally open their eyes and see that it's the government they need to rail against. It's not immigrants. It's not, other people or other groups of people doing this to you. It's actually the people that we're paying through our own hard work, and they're the ones doing it. And we're
right. Yeah. It's not the immigrants that, dismantled unions. That it's not the immigrants that have decided that you don't get health care, or that they're going to increase your insurance premiums, right? So that you are priced out of the market. These are policymakers. The fact that people don't understand that alarms me. And so I wish that, like, I could be like one of those really corrupt experimentalists. Experimentalists? Is that even a word? But experimenters. Oh, my words, some days. I could be one of those really weird and corrupt experimenters, so I can just, like, keep these Trump supporters and just observe them, right, in their natural habitat. No. So that I can kind of figure out why. And I really believe that it's kind of the same behavior in a different manifestation that you see with Clinton supporters. It really is. It's this type of, like, authoritarian, strong man. The wars are good. Human suffering doesn't matter. Just if, under the condition of this, if the person that we are aligning ourselves with does it, right? So you've got Hillary Clinton supporters, and Hillary Clinton, what has she done, right? She has, caused a lot of disruption in the Middle East. I guess she's helped, right? Encourage that. She's, made weapon deals with very authoritarian, authoritarian governments, with jihadists, whatever. So she has done what would be in violation of human rights laws if they actually ever mattered to the United States, which they never do. But it's okay because Hillary Clinton did it to these Clinton supporters, right? Or do they just ignore it like it didn't happen? Like, at what point, what are they housing in their brains or in their minds, right? It happened, it's okay, or it never happened in the first place. I think the Trump guys tend to defer to, well, it never happened, right? So do the Clinton supporters go, yeah, it happened, but it doesn't matter? I don't know. Or does that even matter?
Going back to like the empathy thing, I think people like naturally want, like human beings naturally want solidarity, you know, and the systems of power we have exist to break down the feeling of solidarity and to pit us against each other. And, you know, like you said, like in capitalism, empathy it's punished. Like you're punished for having empathy. You're discouraged to have it. And like all of this is just meant to just drive people further apart and, you know, make us kind of tribalist. And that's why you have, you know, the racist and xenophobic Trump supporters, etc.
Yes, Lauren, thank you. That's a really good point. Yeah, our system doesn't. It's that corrosive individualism, right? It's a system that supports the individual over the group. But if you go back, I talk about like all these things that I did in school. I double majored in anthropology, and so if you look at like anthropologically speaking, the history of humankind, and you see that our brains are developed in certain conditions. They were developed to be social animals and rely on the group. But we currently live in a society that doesn't do that. So what would that do to our natural tendencies that are built in our brains to behave like versus what our culture is overriding in us? And I feel like that's a lot of the reason why you see like the mental disorders and why they manifest in the way that they do in the United States. So schizophrenia, for instance, I researched schizophrenia. But anyways, so you see the manifestation of schizophrenia, very negative terms. The hallucinatory experiences that people with schizophrenia have in the United States tend to be very negative. A lot of auditory hallucinations that would be very derogatory and demeaning to the person with schizophrenia, and so it's very negative. But if you look at it like a culture, another culture or society where the person that's because schizophrenia is about 1% of the population it will have it, and this kind of goes across every culture. But if you look in like more kind of more small scale societies, right, where you know they have a chieftain, your person with schizophrenia is the shaman, and it's looked very positively. And you can look at this experience and see that the person with schizophrenia, their hallucinations aren't negative. They're very like kind of enlightening hallucinations. If they have auditory hallucinations, it's like their God spoke to them, or goddess, or whomever the small scale society believes. And the shaman in the village is like the like go-to person. I mean, they take care of the shaman very well, and it's a rewarded behavior. So you can kind of see like how we treat things differently, but that's like, again, the group taking care of this individual and looking at it from a positive perspective versus, holy shit, you have schizophrenia, run away. And it's treated in very negatively in ours. And I feel like, you know, so you've got an instance of mental health issues, but they don't consider that a mental health issue in a smaller scale society, right? But it's a mental health issue here, and it's a negative mental health issue where it could be a positive one. And so we're making all of these because of this kind of corrosiveness in our society, because of the breakdown of the group, because of the discouraging of solidarity among each other. I think these mental illnesses that you're seeing are manifested so negatively because of a lot of these more peripheral experiences, because of our overarching society. Not peripheral experience, but overarching society, because it does discourage things, because, you know, you have, you know, more collectivist societies that were like, why would we allow our grandparents to go to an old folks home and die alone? That's such a wild concept to more collectivist societies, but to us, that's normal. And you have a lot of elderly people that are alone and suffering because they have nobody. But that wouldn't happen in another society. It's unheard of. But why does individualism, why do we keep getting encouraged to do it? It's because, again,